Hello and welcome back to the Home Lab, and I've got a really interesting video for you today. In fact, it's going to be a bit of a surprise both for you but equally for me. So let me tell you how this video came about. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, one of my viewers got in touch on the email and he said, "Anthony, I've got something that I think might interest you." And I thought, well, that's quite intriguing. Turned out, I think he'd been watching some of my videos on sort of retro computer and electronics technology. And in the emails, he said, my father worked in the electronics and computing sphere many, many years ago. And he'd amassed a collection of quite interesting bits and pieces. And I thought, well, that's intriguing. And he said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll send you a photograph. Well, with respect, I got a photograph very rapidly and it was very blurry and a bit out of focus. But I could see some of the items on the photograph and he clearly knew they were important. And it was only when I looked a bit closer, there was one item there that I thought, that is truly amazing. It's extremely rare and it's a really important part of computer history. So we got in touch a bit further, more emails went backwards and forwards, and he very kindly said, "Oh, Anthony, I'd like you to feature some of this on your channel. I'll send it to you." And I thought, well, that's very kind of you. And so a few days later, this beautifully packed box came. And I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but just looking at how it's all packaged and some of the photographs of how his father kept all the electronics he had, you can see they really looked after things. And what I want to do today is open this box in front of you, but it's going to be much more than just a viewer's mail unboxing that you sometimes get on YouTube. In here, and I know it's at the bottom because of the packing order, is that item that is extremely rare and a really important part of computing and electronics history. All the other things in there as well are really important. So let's have a look inside the box and see what he sent me. And as I said earlier on, this is going to be as much a surprise for you as it's going to be for me. So let's start having a look at what's in this package. And you might think, well, Anthony, it's a bit boring just showing you opening a box like this and nothing much going on. But I am extremely excited about this. This has been sitting on my desk for nearly a week now, and I've been waiting for a quiet moment when the lad's at school and everyone's away, so I can open this in secret, as it were. And as I said, it's really well packaged, but it's the contents that I don't know exactly what I'm going to see. I saw some things in the gosh, this is well packaged, in the photograph that Charlie sent me, but I can't wait. It was a bit, I suppose it's a bit like a birthday for someone who's interested in computing and electronics and electronic history. It's like, oh, what am I going to get here? But I know there's going to be some really interesting bits to share with all of you. And so talking in reverse now, it's almost what I do at the end of the video. I do hope some of you will say in the comments what sort of things you recognise in here. So I'm going to lift some things out. And I don't want to spoil the story, but I can see something really interesting here. So I'm going to put some things out on the desk. And again, you can just see that things were looked after and absolutely beautifully packed. So what's coming out is a number of circuit boards. Perhaps let's have a quick look at this one. Okay. And what was really interesting was Charlie's father absolutely labelled everything. Everything had a label on and a description of what it was. And this one already says divide by 4 unit. So absolutely fascinating. So we'll have a look at these in a bit more detail and we'll get to all the bits unpacked and we'll get them onto the desk. Now there's something. I'm gonna have a look at that in a minute. That's incredibly special. I'm being a bit unfair here, aren't I? But let's get everything out. And then when I've done that, we'll start looking at things actually on the desk. So I'm going to dig a bit deeper in here. I thought I'd get it all out on the desk, but in fact it's a bit more fun actually unboxing it in front of you. I'm going to show you these in more detail, but we got some pluggable circuit boards. Some of you might recognise what these were used for, with some transistors on them, and we'll have a look at what transistors are on those. And a diode array there. And these will have come from very specific applications, very specific computers. So we'll try and work out which ones they actually came from. And the plan is to perhaps try and get some of these boards working. Now, as I said, Charlie's father had a real interest in electronics, and he told me that he worked at Catterick, teaching and training, and that's the Royal Signals Corps up there. And some of these items, I think, came from that sort of background. But he also worked much later on in all sorts of electronics fields. And I think for a while for Welsh Steel, doing some data processing. Here's a box. GEC germanium PNP junction transistors. So we'll have a look at those in a minute. And there's all sorts of things in here. So we'll come back to that one. But it was clear that he collected electronics, not just a pile of electronics, but to represent how electronics over the years had changed. So here's an example of a circuit board with its sort of point-to-point wiring on it. And you'll notice it's double-sided. So we're going to look at were circuit boards single-sided for a while, then double-sided. And this one is marked pulse separator and stores. That's interesting. So let's put that down here. Some magnetic tape. The date's 1963 on that. So that's intriguing. And let's go in here. I'm just looking at what it says. Yeah, Mr. Lamb, and it says computer block. So let's see what we've got in here. Now, straight away, what comes out is the label, and this will really mean something to you. This is a panel from Poseidon. Okay, and so it actually says it was the data acquisition system for HMS Eagle. So these are items of real historical interest. Actually, I don't know if I hold that up to the light for once the sun is not being annoying. You can actually see printed circuit on the back, and you can see the components on the front all neatly lined up. So we'll unpack that over here. And I do need a much, much bigger bench. What have we got here? So that a multiplexer panel. Oh, that's interesting. 16 inputs, and then that scales down to 4 outputs. Be interested to see how that works. And you'll notice there are components on both sides of that panel. So I'm going to put that down here. And finally, one more circuit board. You might notice the bit that, I mean, this is all absolutely fascinating, but the bit that I'm really intrigued to get working, I haven't shown you fully yet. And again, panels from very old computers, and we can look at how the design has changed over the years. So what I'm going to do now is finish emptying the rest of the items from the box, and then we'll have a look at them on the bench, and we'll have a look at how the history of this type of computing panel has changed over the years. So there are an awful lot of fascinating items here, and I'm not going to do them justice in just one video. So we'll just have a quick look now, and then later on I'm sure I'll make some more videos looking at these in more detail. But it's interesting to note that Charlie mentioned his father had some somewhat interesting security clearances that he didn't actually know about, but he thought that must be the case, because he said his father seemed to travel quite widely and have connections all over the place, and even took Charlie as a young boy to Los Alamos, where he was probably lecturing on computer technology and communications. However, Charlie had to stay outside because he didn't have the security clearances his father did, and stay and look around the museum there whilst his father went behind the wire. Anyway, he also said in the email why he thinks his father collected some of these items. And I'll read directly from what he said. He said, I think he actually collected examples of electronics to demonstrate how they worked and curate them in order, to demonstrate the progression of technology and how fast it was moving on in the day. For example, from hand-wired Bakelite boards to single-sided circuit boards and then double-sided circuit boards, and the reduction in size of modules getting smaller and smaller and denser until integrated circuits came along. So that's certainly clear in a lot of these boards. These early ones have sort of pins on them, and they're directly hand wired. I mean, I guess there weren't many of these made, and it's on a very, very thick board. I'm a bit interested to see, it says it was Ferranti Limited, 1961, SAGW link. I'm not sure that's anything to do with Sage. That may be on a British ship. Sage was, of course, the Cold War computer that NORAD ran. So could it have come out of that? Who knows? And then you've got boards like this one that I've shown you, the fascinating one, the Poseidon board from HMS Eagle. And I think that was the HMS Eagle that was in the Falkland Islands. And this was used with the radar sets for data acquisition, so they knew about the missiles that were coming and going. And it's really interesting design. For those of you that know about Manhattan design, it's a bit like that. You've got wires running vertically down the board and transistors, OA85 from Mullard and things that you'll all recognise if you did electronics in that sort of time. And then when you flip it over, you'll notice a single printing on it, and that goes horizontally. So you've got that, it's not a Manhattan board, but you've got that sort of Manhattan design where you've got the wires going vertically here and then the wires going horizontally there. Let's have a look at a few of the other bits. So some individual units here, and they're labelled. This one is a magnetic core plate. So I guess the plate was bare and then you could build on it what you wanted to. And here's one look at these old resistors, recognisable transistors, the OC71, almost certainly from Mullard there. And that's described as a crystal oscillator. So some intriguing boards there. And then this board from a computer system again, and all labelled beautifully. And I love these old sort of luggage labels with the Queen symbol on them. And you'll notice that these are a little bit more dense. They've got the transistors in little clamps, etc. on them. But you'll notice printed on both sides now, and that most of the printing goes horizontally. But we've still got these very thick circuit boards. And then hiding away in this box, this is a really interesting little thing, some Ferranti items, and I don't know if you can see in there, it says, maybe perhaps I should get it out, Ferranti miniature logical element. So they were obviously trying to design a sort of a precursor to the dual inline package IC, and then pot the whole thing. And here's one that's still sort of opened up, so you can see what's going on. To me, it looks like diode logic. And then I'm just going to reach behind me, because this is going to need a lot more time and investigation. But there's a really interesting paper here written by Mr. Lamb, and it says a new solution to an old problem. And it talks about modern logic techniques being used, and wrapped up in that were these little circuit boards, and I recognised them straight away as being individual sort of logic units. And of course I didn't have to guess much, because there's a drawing there, and this one is clearly a flip-flop. So a little small board that could be put into a computer and be one single flip-flop. And here we go. 2 NOR gates. I haven't worked out how many inputs they've got, but it's probably 2 inputs. And so there's a couple of NOR gates there. And again, this will just be using transistor and resistor logic. And I'm going to do a video on that as well at some stage. Now, there's more than I can deal with in one short video here. I just wanted to sort of show you the unboxing. And we've got some really interesting transistors to look at here as well. and some of those are opened up so you can see how they were actually made inside. But there's one item that I really want you to see before we finish off today. So everything we've looked at today has been absolutely fascinating, but it's this one that brings back special memories for me as well that I really wanted you to see. Because when I was at school, we had a mainframe computer, in fact, and there was also a cabinet with ancient computing technology in it. And in that cabinet was a board that looked something like this. And I have not seen one since. And this is an incredibly important part of computing history. Because if you look at it, one or two of you might recognise what this is. And I'll just flip it over for a second so you can see some of the components on the other side. This is a circuit board out of a computer. You can see the handle. They were pluggable and they all kind of plugged in like that. And there were rows and rows of them. And you'll notice 3 valves here, 3 thermionic valves. And straight away, this design, if you know what you're looking at, you recognise it. This is out of the Ferranti Pegasus computer that was built in about, well, it was from sort of 1956 to about 1959. And when I was looking up the Pegasus computer, it was really interesting because it said this was an extremely popular computer, so popular that they sold 38 units. Well, there used to be a working one in the Science Museum, and until relatively recently, I think it was about 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, you could see that computer actually working in the Science Museum and being demonstrated. But I read that it had a major electrical fault, and they stopped doing that and they put it into storage. But these circuit boards are individual, in fact there's 3 here, individual logic gates, so that for those of you who've only played with TTL logic and dual inline packages, well, there you go, there's your historical dual inline package with the edge connector here. It plugged into the computer vertically. It needed various power supplies, both for the components on the board, the valves, the heaters, the anodes on the valves, and these are glow and they'd be incredibly hot. You've got big connecting point on the end here, and then these diodes, and they always had little coiled wires. They always coiled those up to allow a bit of movement, I'm told, and also to allow the heat to come off them if there was extra heat there, particularly so you didn't crack the little glass cases they were in. Anyway, this is a very, very special thing, an original Pegasus board, and I could look at it and work out from the resistors here and the diodes that we've got some diode resistor logic here. But of course, we've got some valves as well. So we've got a sort of active element. And here we go. These are 3 6-input NOR gates in this. So what we've got on here is the equivalent of a sort of dual inline package that has 3 NOR gates in it. And it's really special to be able to handle something like this. This is really the sort of thing that brought computing forwards, using gates that weren't mechanical gates. They weren't just switches and relays. And this is a really important example of that history. So thank you so much, Charlie, for sending me this. Well, what an absolutely fascinating collection of items that is, and I haven't really done any of it justice yet. I haven't laid them out in date order and really gone into the detail of what each circuit board does. But we had to start somewhere, and I'm really grateful to Charlie for sending me these things, and especially, there we go, you know, my favourite, the Pegasus board. But when I get to understand some of the items that are behind me, some of the other circuit boards, I think they've got some really interesting and intriguing history as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some photographs of these, and I'm going to put them after I've finished at the end of the video, and so you can look through and see some of the circuits that he sent me. And if you know anything about them, by all means add some ideas to the comments, because it's always interesting to know about this history, and we don't want it lost. We want to record it so other people will look back and see how computing has changed incredibly, but where it sort of all began. And so I'm going to collect all these things up now and take some photographs for you. But as ever, thanks ever so much for joining me today, and for this being a very special and different FJ's Physics. I'll be making another video soon, and I look forward to seeing you then.